Hey everyone, welcome to week 42. This is day 4, Thursday. This is our unfamiliar week. So remember, throughout this week, we've been trying to paint things that are familiar to us or were once familiar to us in new ways, in unfamiliar ways, with the hopes that it becomes a learning experience. So we've painted Danny, we've painted my hand, we painted an alcohol sort of spritzer bottle thing. And today we'll see what we do. Okay, let's get started. This is day 4. This is Thursday. This is our 4th day on our ongoing unfamiliar week. What we've been trying to fight through this week is this notion that there are tough things to paint. There are obviously in nature things that are highly complex to paint. I don't even have to go too far. We are going to have lunch in about, 30 minutes. I am Colombian, so if I think of lunch, I think of white rice. Painting a bowl of white rice has to be a very, very tough thing to paint. Whenever I say that there are no tough things to paint, that there is no difficult, that difficulty doesn't exist, I obviously acknowledge that there are things that are highly complex that would require a lot of effort to paint and a lot of concentration. But perhaps that's my point. If I had to paint that bowl of rice, I would actually have to have the right mindset to be able to tackle that problem. It has nothing to do with my ability. Like, if I see a bowl of rice, I wouldn't tell myself, no, I can't paint that because it's too difficult. Like, I don't have the ability that's necessary to paint that. That's not true. I think that anyone with a solid understanding of the fundamentals of painting, of the basis of painting, can paint a bowl of rice. For me, that's a very obvious thing to state. What it would mean if I wanted to paint a bowl of rice would be that I would have to really concentrate on what I'm doing. And, there's this one variable that is very important in all of this, and it's time. It would maybe take me a bit more time to do than, let's say, if I was painting a subject matter that I was more familiar with. So I think we can all agree that given one's ability, it would just take more time to paint. Time is this variable that sometimes scares us a lot. But if we detach ourselves from it and we just say, yeah, it probably takes more time. Let's say we usually paint a painting in, 3 weeks. I'm just saying a number. So don't worry if you're painting a painting in less than that. And please, I don't want to offend anyone if it takes you 6 months to do a painting. But for the sake of the argument, let's just say it takes you 3 weeks to do a painting. And let's say we look at a bowl of rice and we go like, oh my God, this is going to take, maybe 2 months to paint. It's not a matter of, can I paint it? It's just a matter of, wow, that's going to take a long time to paint. And here's the thing. We human beings have a tendency to then introduce a bunch of other variables that have nothing to do with painting. They have to do with real life, and that obviously affects painting. But in the sense of something being difficult to paint, they have no place. So if we had established that we usually take 3 weeks to paint something, and we suddenly encounter something else that is going to take 2 months, our mind starts saying, well, in that same space of time, in those 2 months, I could have painted 3 or 4 paintings, and it means that I could have received, if they sold, X amount of money. But now, if in that same amount of time I paint 1 painting, I potentially receive a 3rd or a 4th. And what happens is that we start doing this arbitrary thing, which is to say that time equals money. And that's not entirely true in art, to be 100% honest. So what we could do is to try and overcharge for that painting. So let's say, and I know we're going into the deep end with this, but bear with me. I think I'm going somewhere with this. So let's say we usually charge $100 for a painting we do every 3 weeks. So that would mean that in 2 months, if we do 3 or 4 paintings, let's say for the sake of the argument again, that we do 4 paintings. So now we are used to, as artists, earning $400 in 2 months, right? So now because this painting, this bowl of rice is going to have to be executed in 2 months, we say, well, it can't just cost the same as these other paintings. And bear in mind, the other paintings can be really nice too. I mean, the fact that they would take 3 weeks means nothing. They are very nice, solved paintings. Maybe if you look at them even side by side, you probably can't tell the difference between the one that took 3 weeks and the one that took 2 months. So essentially, they're all going to be the same. And for the sake of the argument again, let's say they're all the same size. But because our bowl of rice took 2 months to do, we are going to say our bowl of rice is going to cost $400 because it actually took the same amount of time that it would have taken me to paint 3 or 4 paintings, 4 paintings for this argument. So in a way, we have imposed on this painting a higher value. We understand it as something that's different from the rest. We see it as something that required other variables in order to be executed. And with that very simple example, suddenly a subject matter is being deemed by us as more complex, more difficult to paint. It requires more patience, it requires more energy, it requires more effort, it requires more time. And if you put all of those things together, it suddenly has a higher value. It's going to be a more expensive painting. And in many ways, if you put all of those things together, it actually becomes a potentially better painting. I mean, if you're investing so much into that painting, then it becomes different. It became a tough thing to overcome. It became a challenge. So it's worth more. Now, here's the thing. What I've been trying to teach myself throughout this year is that painting is the same. And I know this sounds weird, and I know that it may be a hard sell. And this is not me talking from another shore. For all of us who have spent many weeks or many months even working at a painting, I hope that we don't feel offended by what I'm saying, because I know that it seems like an attack if I say, oh, this sketch is actually worth exactly the same as this finished painting. So if I see a sketch of a Rubens painting that can be about 5 by 8 inches, for me that's equally as beautiful as one of those huge Rubens paintings that's at the Louvre, for example. And now somebody would say, come on, you can't expect to have the same reaction to a painting that's small than to a painting that's colossal. You visually experience it differently. Your body has a different experience. You can't just put those two together. You can't just say they're the same. I know, and I understand that argument, but I think having experienced those two things, I mean, not having experienced them at the level that Rubens did, because I'm not Rubens. I'm never going to be Rubens. If the point is that you have to be like Rubens to experience those two differences, then the point is moot, because who is going to be Rubens after Rubens? My point is that I've experienced paintings that take a long time to do, that are very complex, and I've experienced paintings like the ones that I'm doing right now for our project that take about 4 hours to do. And I think I feel the same energy and I feel the same thing. And if I'm frustrated with a painting that I have to stick with for, weeks or months, that feeling of frustration is exactly the same feeling of frustration that I feel when I'm painting something and it's escaping me and I don't know how to fix it. And I try to push myself to find a way out. Those feelings are exactly the same to me right now. So why is it so important for me to say that they are the same? Because the essence of this whole project is to try and eliminate all the variables that can make paintings feel different. So if a painting took more time because we deemed it as being a more complex subject matter, and because it took more time to execute, and we thought of it as being different enough for us to consider it as something that had a higher value than the rest, all these things that are kind of pushing painting apart, I'm trying to say they don't matter to me. I'm trying to think of the painting act as a sort of homogenizing act. So if I'm painting my daughter, and this may seem sacrilegious to a lot of people, but if I'm painting my daughter, or if I'm painting this rotten banana, they are the same. I don't want to be sentimental with a painting of my daughter in the sense that I could be dismissive when I'm painting a banana. The painting act is exactly the same. It is asking the exact same things of me as a painter. The sensibility that I have to have while I'm painting this banana today has to be the exact same sensibility that I feel when I paint Fer. It has to be. That is very, very important to me. If I start thinking that a painting can be more precious than the other one, then I'm going to feel that my efforts are not constant. they're not consistent. And then I'm going to feel attachment to certain paintings and not others. And that sense of attachment is going to impose an arbitrary value on some images. And then those images, for some reason, end up being more expensive than others. And that subjectivity in art is something that I completely understand. I know that I'm part of that. I was part of that for the longest time when I was doing shows and selling small paintings for less, big paintings for more. There could be a big drawing, but because it was a drawing, it would end up costing less than a small painting. Again, all these conditions that we just kind of accept, but have no real reason for being. And if the reason for being is because the large, well-executed painting has a better chance of being eternal in a way, of standing the test of time, and maybe a small pastel or a small drawing can be symbols of fragility. So in a way, we're charging for the possibility of an object withstanding the test of time, then I've already established that that doesn't make sense to me. I don't care about that at all. So if I don't care about those things, if I want to homogenize, my subject matter in the sense that I want to put all my effort and all my energy in the painting act, if I want to understand the painting act as something that's transversal, that it can surpass those variables that we've again, arbitrarily established to create differences between paintings or between techniques. And if I truly believe in painting not being synonymous with eternity, then it kind of makes sense for me to say that whenever I paint, whether it takes me 4 hours to do a painting or 3 weeks or 2 months, they are the same to me. They are exactly the same to me. And this is what we've been trying to do. Now, the biggest challenge for me is going to be when those paintings take 2 weeks or when those paintings take 4 months or when those paintings take a year. And I have to say they cost exactly the same and they have the exact same value. If I believe in not having a sense of attachment to something, then even though a painting may take a long time, I have to reflect upon that and feel the same sense of unattachment as I do with a painting that took me 4 hours to paint. Why are we talking so much about time and about this idea of a painting being frozen in time? I thought that today we could speak about unfamiliar in the sense that what we're doing with this project is in a way, a very unfamiliar way of dealing with painting. Thinking that paintings can all be equal in value. It doesn't matter, how long it took for me to paint them. It doesn't matter what size they are. It doesn't matter if they're gouache or if it's a drawing or if it's an oil painting. They are all equal in value. All of them are exactly the same thing because they all come from that act of reflection that is the act of painting. And in that sense, they are exactly the same. I thought I would do a painting that sort of speaks about that and in the grand tradition of still lifes. And we're not quite doing like the Caravaggio still life, probably the most famous still life of all, where the apple and the pear have these wormholes and there are wilting leaves. And in that sense, you're speaking about aging. And in a sense, those fruits become like the skull in other vanitas paintings. What we're trying to do today follows some of that tradition in the sense that I guess it is a symbolist painting, but in different ways than those that it would seem to point to. It is a rotting banana, so it does obviously speak about time and death. But in my mind, it also speaks about stillness, about this idea of how if I picked a banana with the intention of, eventually eating it, and I forgot about it, and I just placed it there as an object, as this static object, and my mind went blank, and I thought this banana could be a constant right there, and I placed it there with the hopes of it remaining, again, static, frozen in time, hoping that, I may forget to eat the banana, for a couple of days, but, if I go back to it, I'm sure it's going to be fine, and it can have my banana. So in a way, that banana is like painting itself. We think it's going to be there forever. We think it's going to be all nice and ripe and yellow, and it's always going to be there for us to enjoy it. But the truth is, while it remains static, it is actually rotting. That is what happens microscopically, if you want, but that's exactly what happens to paintings. It happens at a slower pace, but it's exactly what happens to paintings. So all of our paintings, all of these wonderful paintings that exist in the world, eventually will become like this banana. And the variable that's in charge of turning all these paintings into this banana is time. That same pesky variable that we were talking about at the beginning, because that's what's going to happen to our paintings. Paintings are alive, and because they are alive, they are going to die eventually. That is what's going to happen to our paintings. Now, we as human beings feel fine with saying, well, that's eventually. If the word eventually signifies this abstraction of time, I'm fine with it. I don't have to deal with it. Like, it will happen, but I don't have to know about it. I'm probably going to be dead, so who cares? So in that sense, this banana is painting. It speaks about the nature of all things, to be honest. It is about painting. It is about life. It is about the universe. It is about everything. So for today, I thought, what better way to encounter the expectation that we have around the ripeness of fruits. And let's take that and let's say, well, as a subject matter, a rotten banana, oh, it's an absolutely wonderful thing to paint. We human beings, we don't usually like to be reminded of our finite nature in this universe by a painting. So nobody wants to wake up and then look at something and say, yep, I am that banana. I'm going to die eventually. Nobody really wants that. But that is the nature of all things. And I thought that it was nice that through this painting today, we could speak about the unfamiliarity that we have with time, even though we think we understand it. The unfamiliarity that we have with painting, even though we know paintings are not eternal, we refuse to believe it. We want to think that they can stand the test of time just because we have paintings that have lasted, and this is true, hundreds or even thousands of years. And for us, that seems to be enough. Like, if it covers my life and maybe, 3 more generations, then maybe we're good. That's the whole purpose of this week, to just turn things a little bit upside down. That's what we've been doing with this project. We both know, Danny and I, and even though we firmly believe in what we're doing, that the effect that our exercise can have in modern day art markets is insignificant. It really is. But it doesn't matter. We really believe that somebody has to try and do it. And why not us? We believe in it. That was it for today. A little bit different today. A little bit different. I like when we can actually speak about not the painting itself, but everything that, kind of grows out of the act of painting. I actually love that. Join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be our last day on our unfamiliar week. And on Fridays, I like to do kind of cheeky paintings. So I think there's going to be like a tiny little story attached to that painting. And it probably is like a dumb little joke, not at all a good reason to do a painting. But for me, it obviously is. So that's going to be tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.